Good evening, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Awoken with Aulden. I am your host, Alden S. Nance, and we have a pretty big show for you this evening, doing some predictions for next calendar year. We are looking in several directions, some geopolitical, some election based coverage, and as well as some just kind of maybe even war slash conflict predictions for you. Wanting to do a little brief recap as we do usually each week. Just what we did last week. If you were here last week, the day before Christmas Eve, the 23rd, we talked about the birth of Jesus Christ and the conflict brewing in excuse me for that belch, in the state of Yemen, or the country of Yemen, rather, with the Southern Transitional Council battling the Houthis, and with the standard Yemenis government at play there. Today is now for this week's episode. Today is once again Tuesday, not wanting to do Awoken Wednesday with tomorrow being New Year's Eve. I'm sure everyone will be a little busier tomorrow. And Tuesday, December 30th, 2025, the last show of this calendar year, unless if something absolutely insane occurs tomorrow, any time during the day tomorrow. We will be back with you next Awoken Wednesday for sure. Maybe do a Tuesday show. Some programming notes for the future. The 14th, I believe, is a Wednesday in January. We will have a second guest on the program. Some exciting news, and we will discuss an important topic that is not getting a whole lot of attention right now. So looking forward to that. Just go ahead and mark that on your calendar. Another, not programming note, but something that ties into a previous episode that we have done on the program, at the country of Israel officially recognized Somaliland, the first UN member state on planet Earth to do so. And that's very important for a few key reasons. If you haven't checked out the Somaliland versus Somalia episode, you should go do that. I detail the one internationally recognized country of Somalia and compare it with Somaliland. So check that out if you haven't. But rather, why did the Israelis recognize Somaliland all of a sudden? Is you have another thing that we've talked about a lot on this show is the Red Sea. You have the Somali pirates, the Houthis in Yemen, the Port of Sudan in Sudan, that civil conflict versus the Rapid Support Forces and the Sudanese Armed Forces, civil war in Sudan. Major control who gets that little sector on the Red Sea. The Somali pirates, they're always pirating around and screwing things up. And the Houthis, the most formidable group of the three that have been sinking several cargo ships, trading ships through this calendar year of 2025, which led to a direct bombing campaign by the United States back in the spring. So the Red Sea is very important. So now the Israelis, and we'll get into more of this, it's a prediction for the show, but something else is that now what does Somaliland want? They want recognition. They finally got it. They've been trying to get it since 1991. Any of these countries, UN member backed, to do it. A lot of these African countries desire that result. However, it is quite challenging to get that. But now they have a partner with the Israelis, and there's Israelis may seek out military bases or military cooperation with Somaliland. So that's something that is very important, that I felt that should be discussed. However, before we dive into the PowerPoint this evening, I want to remind you, if it's your first time on the channel watching the live stream, if it's your first time on X, we also got the live stream set up for X and Twitch. Please subscribe to the YouTube channel. We will continue doing deep geopolitical dives into the world, other countries. 2026, as I mentioned last week, going to be doing a lot of Tuesday and Wednesday back-to-back shows with the primary elections coming up for the midterms. So we need to continue to awaken more individuals to what is happening in the country. So please also leave a like for the video and go ahead and leave a comment. I can see the comments live when I'm on the stream page. So please leave a comment how you think I'm doing. It helps the engagement, and it's fun to build common members of the community, of the Awoken community, to start getting to know each other as we develop and pursue this plan. Okay, so without further ado, we will head into the presentation for this evening. Let's go to this guy. Okay. So 5 bold predictions for 2026. You got the thumbnail. You can kind of see just a quick little, if you're unsure of who all these people are or what they represent, I'll do a quick little who they are. So the bottom left corner, you have the supreme leader of Iran, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, butting heads with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. The government logo, the U.S. Department of Homeland Security, directly above them is to represent the DHS, the immigration enforcement. Then the top, you have the center, Grand Theft Auto VI 6, additionally adding in their Philadelphia 76ers superstar and former Kansas Jayhawk, Joel Embiid. Not bottom right, but bottom right to Mr. Embiid's left shoulder, you have Ohio gubernatorial candidate and former 2024 presidential candidate Vivek Ramaswamy. And the bottom right, you have currently the crown prince of Saudi Arabia, Mohammed bin Salman. Let me fix this. Spectacular. Okay, so we will get into the first prediction. And please, in the comments, if you have beef with my predictions or where you think they may be weak or where you think that they could be better, or please leave a comment and challenge them, or if you agree with my predictions. So the first prediction, this one is really seeming like it's imminent, that it could even happen tomorrow at this rate. But if not, the first couple weeks of January, is that the Israeli-Iran war will officially continue in an official capacity. What do I mean by that? Remember back in June, Operation Midnight Hammer, which was the B-2 bombing by the United States over Fordo, Nastahan, and there were 3 main nuclear facilities targeted during the June strike by the United States. And the Israelis also had their own operation called Operation Rising Lion, which is a code, a little Q for regime change. That's what it was about. It really wasn't about the nuclear facilities. We know the Prime Minister of Israel has been claiming for 2.5 decades at least that Iran is about a month or less away from developing the nuclear capabilities or technology to acquire a nuclear weapon. And why is Operation Rising Lion code for regime change? Well, before the Shah fell in 1979, when Ayatollah Ruhollah Khomeini emerged after a 14-year exile, he comes off the plane. He was in France for, you know, 10, 11, a dozen years, exits the plane, and they tossed the old flag under the Shah, which had the golden lion on it. They changed the flag to make it more of, if you look to just the right of Netanyahu's forehead, you see the current Iranian flag. There used to be a little lion right under that guy, or in the middle of that guy. So that's it. Really wasn't about the nuclear capabilities of the Iranians. It was regime change. That's what it always has been about with them. So you have the 12-day war, the bombing campaign by both sides. A lot of the members of the IRGC, the top line of the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, the parallel apparatus for the Iranian regime, totally separate from the Iranian military. They were killed off or severely injured, and now they have a bunch of backups. Essentially, yeah, you lost your starting quarterback. You need to have, for the Baltimore Ravens, you lose Lamar Jackson, you have Tyler Huntley now step into the fold. Same with the Iranian members in the IRGC. And what that really is signaling is that for the last really almost decade now, but really maybe more 8 years, you have the it's been a maximum pressure campaign. The second that the United States left the JCPOA, excuse me, the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, otherwise known as the Iranian nuclear deal, you had a shadow slash proxy war begin with the Iranians in the United States. What's this mean? The the IAEA, which is mentioned in the second uh, bullet point, is that you had Iranian compliance with the deal. All global institutions and the IAEA reported and figured out that the Iranians were not pursuing a nuclear weapon. So the deal was solid, it was working out. And then in 2018, I believe, the Trump administration that pulls out of it. The next year in 2019, the IRGC, which I mentioned earlier, is now designated as a terrorist organization, which applies additional sanctions and attack levers. And then on January 3rd of 2020, you have the assassination of the architect of the Axis of Resistance, Qasem Soleimani, blown up at the airport. And he helped construct was the seen as the lead architect for the Axis of Resistance, which is, I call it the Triple H proxy: Hamas, Hezbollah, and the Houthis. Hamas within Palestine, has Hezbollah in Lebanon, and the Houthis in Yemen, particularly northern Yemen, which we discussed. Check out the Bethlehem to Yemen episode last week to learn more about the Houthis. And I also did an episode on Hezbollah and Lebanon in itself. Don't want to get too sidetracked at the current moment. But you have the assassination of Qasem Soleimani. And then the next couple years, it's this maximum pressure campaign. The Iranian economy, as we speak, the last 2 or 3 days, protests have begun breaking out over the currency folding, collapsing. The civilian population upset at the regime And why is this important? Well, about 35% of Iran's population is under the age of 30 or 30. And why is this important? Is that they do a third of the population does not have any ties to Ali Khamenei and the 1979 Iranian Revolution. And why is this important for a moment? Well, because there's no that the Iranian nationalism currently sits today as more of a general anti-Western, anti-American. They shout the death to America. You've probably seen the video in the Iranian parliament. The guy's holding up the flag and it's burning, etc. And you really go from there to, but the younger people don't have that same connection from overthrowing the Shah, which I mentioned, and that applies a lot of pressure for the regime. The supreme leader, he's old, he's 86 and a half years old, and there's no following the assassination of Qasem Soleimani and the president last year in that helicopter crash, there is no general perceived successor to Khamenei, and that's the biggest risk right now is that there's no continuity at the moment. And along with going back to the Iranian nuclear deal, you have the Europe was also involved in it. So it wasn't just a USA and Iran deal. The European Union was in it. Major players in Europe were also involved in it. And one of the deals or one of the provisions is that if the Iranians were ever suspected or felt that they were pursuing the nuclear weapon again, is that these sanctions would apply to the country, which is really crippling them right now. It's so, and back in September, the Iranians were like, we can't do this. They abandoned all discussion with the IAEA, and we don't know. That's kind of the question right now. We don't really know what's going on, and the economy is collapsing in real time. As I mentioned, I believe the chief financial, the guy that does their banking, resigned yesterday or earlier today or something like that. The and You saw it yesterday. Netanyahu met with the president for the fifth time this calendar year since January 20th, not even a full year, 11 and a half months. He's averaging a visit about every 63, 64, 65 days or something like that. And widely suspected is that it would target Iran's missile defense program. What's here, I'll do a quick little tidbit on what the deal is with the Iranians. So there's four main things that they have going for them right now. They possess and control the Strait of Hormuz, which is 20% of the global oil supply. They have a proxy network, as I mentioned. Our that was the main architect of that was Qasem Soleimani. Third, they have the missile defense program that I mentioned that is capable of striking the Israelis and defending themselves from attacks. And the fourth is the nuclear weapon capability, which is they're just as strong or as a threat, more or less, having that or not having the bomb itself could only invite maybe more attacks. If the Ayatollah really felt that desperate, he could make a call to North Korea or Russia to say, we will purchase, please give us the nuke. Our regime is on the line right now. We'll give you a year worth of oil for free, or they could make a deal if they really felt like they needed to, which they don't feel like that yet, which is why they haven't done it. So they have those four things going for them. So if they're ever attacked, that's what the proxy network is for. The proxy network could attack the Israelis back or help defend the Iranians. The nuclear hedge program would potentially allow them to break out and get the bomb if they really felt like they needed it. If they wanted to screw with the world, they could close the Strait of Hormuz and increase the oil prices for the entire world instantly overnight. And the missile defense program serves as the main deterrent for them right now. So that's what we're really looking at with this. And even breaking it out a little more, what else happened in September of this year is that France, the United Kingdom, Australia, Portugal, and I believe Canada, and I believe a few other nations for the first time recognized Palestine as an independent sovereign state. So you're kind of seeing where this is heading, right? Both sides are, and maybe the Israeli side, what's maybe pushing them to it is that they're losing global support rapidly. The youth population in America does not support the campaign that the Israelis are doing. They're increasingly skeptical of its validity, and they have their own economic problems. More or less, they don't care what happens with them. That's the big thing right now with them. So they're losing global sympathy and support. So you kind of see where this is heading. Both sides are inching a little closer. They're getting there. And then 2026 is the year. Maybe there's not a winner, but there's somebody takes a major step in the right direction for their side. I could go on about this conflict for another hour, but I don't want to keep it going. I'll go to the next prediction. But more or less, the main prediction is that the Israeli Iranian war officially continues in 2026. Major strikes against each country that we saw back in June. Next prediction is that the ICE raids and immigration custom and enforcement dominates the media attention. And we see this every year with Fox News. About 6 months, maybe 3 months before the midterms, very conveniently, there's a caravan of a bunch of illegal immigrants heading towards America. We see it every single year. And it's probably going to happen again this year with the midterms coming up. And it's something that the reason that, and even the immigration raids this year dominated a lot of attention. The Maryland dad, or whatever they called him, he got a lot of attention back in the spring, really before the Iran and Jeffrey Epstein stuff hit the fan. So you also have that shooting that killed two detainees at the Dallas ICE facility. That occurred the right before the Jeffrey Epstein stuff, and I believe late May or early June was Los Angeles. The ICE raids. The protesters were burning cars. They were waving Mexican flags. They were throwing objects at ICE agents. And we still see this today. Even the Somali daycare detention raids is these counter protesters are blowing the whistles, they're screaming, they're alerting these illegal immigrants to hide or not to answer the door because it's ICE. We saw in Chicago in particular back in around Halloween, a little before Halloween this year, is these protesters were throwing eggs and rocks, bricks. They were boxing in ICE cars. The and these blue state governments and governors have told the state enforcement, the law enforcement, to not intervene if the ICE if they're being beat up, to just let it happen. And you kind of see where that's heading as well. You have state authorities not listening to federal authorities, and that can create a clash as well. So that's a very big topic that we're going to see. And let's step back a little bit. This is the issue that got Trump back in office, was immigration promises and reform and mass deportations. So So as of now, if you look at the numbers, they're not as high as a lot of people are hoping. Even if you take, I believe the AF Post released some numbers that conducted by the Guardian was about a little under 350,000. There's something like that had been deported this calendar year. But then the ICE DHS quote tweeted that tweet and said, "Oh, actually, instead, it's about 2.5 million people. X amount of people self-deported, and we deported more than the 300 some odd thousand number that you guys are saying." So that's already a showdown. Is that the and you've seen the admin? They're also really agitating right now. They're releasing these hype videos of these illegals or people that are being detained or arrested on like the Menard shopping cart, right? The wheelbarrow kind of thing, and it's you see me rolling or you see me riding, you see me rolling, whatever the song is. There's the Pokemon, it gotta catch 'em all memes. All of a sudden, if you're an illegal immigrant, that's not really funny anymore. So the self deportation, that's what they're really trying to push right now. So next calendar year, you're going to see a huge escalation of rhetoric. It's a popular issue. The conservative base, the Republican base, and the party loves this kind of rhetoric. It's red meat for the base. That's why they talk about it so much. That's why the president had that rant against the Somali the Somali community in Minneapolis a few weeks ago. It was at the cabinet meeting. So you're kind of seeing where this is going to boil down. So you're going to see a lot, particularly around once the weather starts getting a little good again, once it starts improving, it gets a little better in the late spring, early summer, they might try something like this again. And it's something that's really frustrating a lot of people on the right at the current moment. The lack of numbers, I should say. So let's go. So that's the second prediction, is that the immigration becomes so much more tenfold. Third prediction, Vivek Ramaswamy loses the Ohio governor's race. So there was the day after Christmas in 2024, you probably remember the tweet, and I have it pulled up. I will find it. I'll just read it to you. I believe you can still see me. It's quote at Vivek G. Ramaswamy on December 26, 2024 at 10:02 a.m. It has 127 million views, 48,000 replies, 46,000 retweets slash quote tweets, 42,000 bookmarks, and 153,000 likes. Quote, the reason top tech companies often hire foreign born and first generation engineers over, quote, native, unquote, Americans isn't because of a innate American IQ deficit, open parenthesis, a lazy and wrong explanation, close parenthesis, period. A key part of it comes down to the C word, culture. Tough questions demand tough answers, and if we're really serious about fixing the problem, we have to confront the truth in all quotes. Colon. Our American culture has venerated mediocrity over excellence for way too long. Open parenthesis, at least since the 90s and likely longer, close parenthesis, period. That doesn't start in college. It starts in all caps, young, period. A culture that celebrates the prom queen over the math Olympiad champ or the jock over the valedictorian will not produce the best engineers. A speech that venerates Corey from, quote, Bad Meets World, unquote, or Zach and Slater over Screech and, quote, Saved by the Bell, unquote, where Stefan over Steve Urkel and Family Matters will not produce the best engineers. Fact, excuse me, open parenthesis, fact, colon, I know multiple sets of immigrant parents in the 90s who actively limited how much their kids could watch those TV shows precisely because they promoted mediocrity. And their kids went on to become wildly successful STEM graduates. Close parenthesis, period. More movies like Whiplash, fewer reruns of Friends, more math tutoring, fewer sleepovers, more weekend science competitions, fewer Saturday morning cartoons, more books, less TV, more creating, less chilling. Quote, more extracurriculars, less hanging out at the mall. Most normal American parents look skeptically at quote, those kinds of parents, unquote. More normal American kids view, quote, those kind of kids, unquote, with scorn. If you grow up aspiring to normalcy, normalcy is what you will achieve. Now close your eyes and visualize which families you knew in the 90s, open parenthesis, or even now, close parenthesis, who raised their kids according to one model versus the other. Be brutally honest. Normalcy doesn't cut it in a hyper competitive global market for technical talent. And if we pretend like it does, we'll have our asses handed to us by China. This can be our Sputnik moment. We've awakened, not awoken, we've awakened from slumber before, and we can do it again. Trump's election hopefully marks the beginning of a new golden era in America, but only if our culture fully wakes up. A culture that once again prioritizes achievement over normalcy, excellence over mediocrity, nerdiness over conformity, hard work over laziness. That's the work we have cut out for us. Rather than wallowing in victimhood and just wishing or legislating alternative hiring practices into existence, I'm confident we can do it. And 2 American flag emojis. So that's the quote that really sparked an outrage among a lot of the more nationalist America First right. And so that's the main quote right there, right? So America First activists and groypers openly turned against his candidacy. You saw this earlier this week. I believe it was either a few days after Christmas or before. America First live streamer and leader of the groyper movement, more or less, commentator Nick Fuentes made the comments about that he was responding to Vivek Ramaswamy's speech that mentioned him by name at America Fest, the Turning Point USA event, Charlie Kirk's whole shindig and deal, and responded to Vivek and essentially declared war against Vivek and the candidacy, saying that he didn't mind if the Democrat won or if people should do a write-in candidate or something like that. So now Vivek has a target on him, not just from the general left, he also has it from the America First right. And Amy Acton, the tweet I just read you, Amy Acton has also used that to attack him. And let's just be brutally honest that the Republicans, they have the trifecta right now. They have a 6-3 conservative majority on the Supreme Court. As we have known from time and time again, the midterms generally produce poor results for the incumbent party. That's also something that is not helping Ramaswamy at the moment. That's just a general political fact. And in a state like Ohio, you have a lot of working class and a lot of people that may feel squeezed or screwed by H-1B visas. And that doesn't really help him right now. And Ohio, as we know, Obama won the state twice. Sherrod Brown was the last Democrat to win statewide in 2018, but it's not like an Oklahoma or a Wyoming state. It is trending red. It is growing redder. However, it's not a lock. So if you have a couple of things, you need a almost like a parlay in sports. You need a couple things going for you to win in politics. One of the things that Acton or the Democrats have is that the national environment will probably favor them. The H-1B comments from Ramaswamy, the declaration of war against Fuentes and the Groypers. That's a terrifying trifecta, and I'd be a little worried if I was Ramaswamy. And just natural headwinds as well. So the third prediction, more bold take, is that Ramaswamy loses the Ohio governor's race. Hope I could provide you some background with that. And we will move on to the fourth prediction, which is another geopolitical prediction. Let's go here. Okay. Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman of Saudi Arabia becomes the king of Saudi Arabia, which is actually so tomorrow is so the current king of Saudi Arabia, King Salman, he turns 90 years old tomorrow on December 31st. That's his birthday. And we're looking at an elderly man who's been really withdrawn and removed from public life in Saudi Arabia. He really there's only gentle reminders about his reign as king. Maybe it's a holiday or a birthday or something like that. His official office will release a statement, but we know for around a decade now, MBS is leading the charge. He's in the driver's seat. He's the de facto leader at this very moment, even as just the crown prince. Some of the things that, how did he consolidate this power? Is one of the biggest things was the 2017 Ritz-Carlton purge. He essentially, it was an anti-corruption move, but it really was seizing the financial assets of every perceived threat to the crown prince and provided a way for him to kick everyone else down. Any threats to him financially or politically or were removed and crippled significantly. I believe even his father's one of his prior wives was one of the people that were detained and had their assets seized at this purge. And the more or less the turning point, in NFL you have the former Turning Point series, etc. Or maybe the swing factor is that when Mohammed bin Nayef was removed from being the deputy prime minister of Saudi Arabia and was stripped of all political power back not several years ago, but multiple years ago, it cleared the runway and made Salman MBS the top dog in Saudi Arabia. Nobody was challenging him. He had control of all he needed to. And what are his goals? He wants that 2030 smart city. That's what he really desires. And in hopes of getting Saudi Arabia off of a oil-based economy. He wants to diversify the economy. Right now, Saudi Arabia, they're mostly hanging on through oil and other financial assets, more or less, but he's hoping to develop the smart city. And if you haven't checked that out, I watch another YouTube video about it or something like that. It's actually a unique idea he's proposed, but it's really a form of control, right? It's all of these big tech stuff coming in, going to change a lot of things, and Saudi Arabia society. And that city is called Nome. All right. So that's what he's really in the prediction. I'm kind of predicting that King Solomon kicks the bucket, more or less, honestly. but not wishing death on anybody. I just think it's a bold take, a bold prediction, and maybe he doesn't wait for the father to pass away. Maybe he has a stroke or is mentally incapacitated or physically incapacitated, something like that, to where he can officially become king. And that would set a when he does become king, whether it's sexy or not, that's a major Middle East move. Is that because a lot of these kings before him, like his father, he's only been a king for a decade. And it used to go by the brothers because King Saud, the founder of the Saudi kingdom, Saudi Arabia, the first king of Saudi Arabia, had like 75 or 80 kids. That dude uh, played polygamy about as good as anyone else, I would assume, and had on a rotating basis 3 to 4 wives, and he had a lot of children. So it used to go through, it was all the kids, but now all those kids of his are aging out, and MBS more or less just, as I mentioned, it seized the power through the Ritz Carlton purge and other factors. Sidelined the deputy prime minister, stripped him of all of his political power. So that's what we're looking at right now. So that's the fourth prediction. But the fifth prediction is that GTA 6 and GTA 6 will be released next calendar year, and Joel Embiid will make his first conference finals appearance as a Philadelphia 76er, or even in his career for that matter, before we get a fully constructed border wall on the southern border. Why is this important? Because when the current president went down the escalator at Trump Tower, a little, I believe less than 10, we're coming up on 10 years basically from that, is that was the main promise, is to build the wall, and we still do not have a fully constructed border wall. Why? It's so frustrating. But regardless of that, and it's, yeah, you think it's funny or it's a joke, but it's not. Uh, Grand Theft Auto has been delayed repeatedly several times. It was supposed to come out in just a couple months from now. Now it's a little before Thanksgiving next year. That's an internet meme that's discussed all the time. And the same with Joel Embiid, is that he's never made a conference finals. So I think it's more likely that we're going to have that game released, and Joel Embiid will find a way to power the Sixers to the conference finals before we get the fully constructed border wall. Because as of now, the administration is not serious about this immigration stuff, and we need to push the administration to be more serious about this. This is a crisis. This is an emergency. This is not, we're not playing around here. And both of those events I mentioned, the video game, the Grand Theft Auto, and Joel Embiid, are always made fun of online, but no one talks about how the border wall still has not finished construction. And the delays, yeah, they're viewed as lack of seriousness rather than legal obstacles. Who just build it? Just do it. You're in power. You have the trifecta. You have the House, the Senate, the White House, and a 6-3 majority on the Supreme Court. Build the wall. Get it done. And it becomes a credibility test for the admin. So speaking, just going to go on a little tangent here now. You have, when the politicians come to you every 2 years or every 4 years, depending on your voting frequency, and they say, this is the most important election of your lifetime. And you go in there and you vote, you get your mom, you take her to the polls with you, you take your siblings, you guys go and vote, but nothing ever changes every time, right? Really. And so instead of it, just a message to the What you need to do as a voter is to your party leadership is say, "Hey, Mr. Speaker, hey, Mr. Senate Majority Leader, it's actually not the most important election of my lifetime. It's the most important election of yours. If you want to stay in the majority, fix it now. I don't care what you have to do. Fix it. We did our part. We did the voting. You're in power because of that. You need to deliver. We're not going to keep putting up with this. Oh, we need more time. Oh, the bureaucracy. Well, we don't care. It's been the same song and dance for decades, and we should demand better as citizens. That's how politics works. Don't let them convince you it's the most important election of your lifetime. You've done the game before. It's the most important election of their lifetime. If they want to remain in power, they need to do what you voted them in to do. Period. Full stop. Okay. And right, like we're seeing it with the Somali, the daycare fraud, and I see Eric Trump tweeting, "Some people need to go jail in Somalia." Yet pick up the phone and call your father and have him do something. You're in power. Do something. Anything. And everyone just kind of twiddles their thumbs like, "Oh yeah, we need to." No, you're in power. We're done with this. We need more time. Oh, the Democrats are stopping us. They're obstructionists. No, you have the trifecta. Find a way to get it done. Same with the being upset about the deportation numbers. We elected you for this issue and you're not delivering. So why should we vote for you again? And what does it matter if the other side wins, right? That should scare you. That should keep the politicians up at night, is that the voters are actually going to play the deal this time. And if the Republicans are not serious about these issues, then we should not vote for the Republicans. They need to understand that we're not playing around, that we're done with no results, all talk, no action. So that's my little tidbit about the elections coming up. When you, like in 2026, when your congressman asks you for the vote to vote for him or her again, ask, say, why should I vote for you? What have you done to improve my life? What have you done to make the party maybe, as we all know, there's 535 voting members of Congress, 100 senators, 435 in the House. So it's not a king. Yeah, it's not a king, right? There is power sharing, right? But what have you done to impress me enough to take the time to vote for you again or to donate money to you again? Hold their feet to the fire. It's the most important election of their lifetime, not yours. So that's the little spiel, the PowerPoint for you tonight. That is the last prediction. So the prediction is that we will get Grand Theft Auto 6 and Joel Embiid will somehow make a conference finals appearance before we get the full southern border wall completed. And let me get out of this guy. Let me go back to full screen. I will. So that's the show or the presentation I have for you this evening. I'm more than happy to take questions or field any comments that you may have. Thank you for tuning in this evening. We had a pretty solid little live stream tonight. Very happy about that. As we had, you've probably had to see some of my shorts by now. I'm starting to get some good engagement on that front as well. Some solid views, getting around 500 or so each week, or not each week, but each slow or show. So let's go to. Okay, we had a fan text in a question about Any predictions for the Kentucky men's basketball season? How they're doing? It looks like the addition of Jaden Quaintance off the bench is providing the Wildcats a much needed boost and help that they need. We saw him in that St. John's game. It seems like the Wildcats have recovered after a short little stumble at the beginning of the year where they suffered a couple, I can't remember who, a couple bad losses or teams that they should have beat, especially with the expectations under the second year of Mark Pope's regime in Lexington. So it seems like they've stabilized a little bit up to a point now. However, we will have to see what conference play looks like. It seems like Florida is a little weaker than they were last year, as expected, right? They had the title year. It's tough. It's very tough to go back and back in college basketball, even though UConn did it a few years ago. But additionally, it seems like the SEC last year they had 14 out of 16 make the tournament. And this year they are looking at probably less than that, but a little weaker of a down year for the SEC. So I believe the Wildcats, as a prediction, I believe they'll still find a way to qualify for the tournament. However, the depth of that tournament will depend, as every year this happens. The draw, who is the 1 seed or the 2 seed in the region? How did you finish the year? The SEC tournament is always a solid little indicator. How do you play against solid teams in your conference? Excuse me. Just a couple days before the big dance tips off. As we know, the SEC always ends on Selection Sunday. So you got teams that the second the game ends, they're in the locker room watching the selection show on CBS. So you have a lot of big factors into that go into that, along with the SEC. There's really football is interesting. We got the kind of step off basketball for a second. You have the college football playoff. We're down to eight teams in the field remaining. Tomorrow evening, I believe at 7:30, maybe a little later, you have the 10 seed, the Miami, against the 2 seed Ohio State Buckeyes. I believe the Miami, what they're looks like a duck or BU, whatever they call themselves. And so you have that tomorrow night, the New Year's Eve game. You also have on New Year's Day, I believe, what you have the 1 seed Indiana versus the 9 seed Crimson Tide of Alabama. The 3 seed, which I believe is Georgia, I believe they have Ole Miss. I think Ole Miss won that game against Tulane. And then you have Texas Tech against Oregon, I believe is that game. Oregon defeated James Madison in the first round. So you got a pretty solid gang of 8, not to steal from a political term. The gang of 8 for amnesty back in 2014. But I digress to the point. We should have some solid games this weekend for the college football playoff. So if anyone else has any questions, we can get right into it. I'm just checking, make sure nothing has happened at the moment. So yeah, I am. Yeah, if anyone else has any other questions, I will be happy to field them. However, it's looking like people are out. It's only a couple days until 2026. We are happy to be with you, and as hopefully the show can continue growing next calendar year. So again, hope you enjoyed the predictions tonight. I'll try to get to you next week's schedule sometime this weekend. There is a lot of travel. Yeah, there's travel going on. There's flights. There's other stuff like that that may make it a little more difficult. So, regardless of that, we'll probably be with you next Awoken Wednesday for sure. Maybe another day. However, and as just a little general guide for 2026, I mentioned this at the beginning of the show. You have the midterms coming up, a lot of primaries. There's a ton of. Oop, just had a fan text in. Okay, about the Super Bowl and Kentucky Senate race. So I'll do the Super Bowl first. And you're really looking at this week 18. It has, as we all know, home field advantage is paramount in the playoffs. And the NFC as a whole is looking stronger than the AFC this year, particularly the NFC West, the Rams, the 49ers, and the Seahawks. Three really solid teams right now. You also have the Chicago looks pretty solid. The Eagles are there are a lot of veterans on the team, former reigning champs, so that makes it a little challenging to knock them off. And then you have the mid off going on in the NFC South between the Buccaneers and the Panthers. We'll have to see which team limps into the playoffs in that division. But the big game is Seattle and San Francisco. Whoever wins that gets home field, I believe, and that gives them the first round bye, rest, home field throughout. So whoever wins that, I'd almost become them in Chicago. I think Chicago can compete, as we saw on Sunday Night Football. They can compete with San Francisco in the top talent in the NFC. So I think it's Chicago at this point. Chicago versus either the champion or the runner-up in the NFC West. That's what we're looking at for the representative in the NFC. And the AFC, with Kansas City out of the mix, you have to think Buffalo has to find a way to win it this year. I know the Patriots are having a strong year with May, and I know Denver is looking decent, but I'd go with Buffalo out of the AFC. They have to find a way. Allen has to find a way to lock in and get it done simply. So I'd say Buffalo over Seattle at this very moment. We'll see how the seeding plays out. I might change it come next week. However, the next question to that was, the Kentucky Senate race. So this will be the first time in would have been the end of his sixth, seventh, six. I didn't mean to say that, but the sixth, seventh term of Kentucky Senator and longtime majority leader or Republican Senate leader Mitch McConnell. You're looking at him retiring now. You saw the video of him a couple months ago just falling over, walking towards a vote in the Senate, not looking particularly well. You saw last in 2024, I believe, he froze on multiple occasions. Not a great look for the longtime senator. So he's stepping aside. And I know a lot of people are trying to get Bashir to run for it, but I believe he has presidential aspirations. So we'll see who the Democrats nominate. And I believe in the Republican primary, you have James Comer, the House Oversight Chair currently of the First District of Kentucky, I believe. And you have a couple other, I believe another House member, name slipped my mind at the moment. We'll just have to see. And that will be a big Senate race that we track throughout next calendar year, because it will be symbolic in a way to whoever succeeds Mitch McConnell, just knowing his personal legacy in Kentucky, being around since the 80s, that's a big deal, right? 40 some odd years in the Senate, something to diminish. Okay, let's see. Okay, I believe that's the last question, the fan question texted in. And we will, yeah, we're going to end it there for the night. Once again, we'll be back with you likely next Wednesday. Please stay safe tomorrow night. If you're going to be in the party mode, make wise decisions. Don't do anything that will prevent you from seeing the new year in 2026. We want you here. So with that, you have been awoken with Aulden. Excuse me, once again. Good night, everybody. Much love and happy new year. We will see you next year.